Fit to Love, Episode 10, Overcoming Mindless Night Eating.
Fit to Love is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness to achieve the happy life you deserve. From exercise to cooking, relationships, and spirituality, you'll find all the inspiration you need right here with our host, JJ Flizanes.
Hello and welcome, everyone, to the Fit to Love Thoughtful Thursdays. Today's show, Overcoming Mindless Night Eating, and we have with us expert Rita Black. Rita Black is a clinical hypnotherapist. She's the director of Shift Hypnosis in Los Angeles and the author of the upcoming book, From Fat to Thin Thinking, Make the Shift in 30 Days. Her breakthrough hypnosis-based processes, the Shift Weight Mastery process, and Stop Smoking in 1 Hour Guaranteed have helped thousands take charge of their lives by helping them harness the power of their subconscious mind to shift past belief and habit barriers and create powerful breakthroughs that last. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you so much for having me, JJ. I'm so pleased to be on your show.
I'm excited to have you. And this is a great topic. I'm sure lots of people are very interested in that overcoming mindless night eating. I know it happens sometimes in this house, and not necessarily by me. So hopefully lots of people will tune in and listen to Overcoming Mindless Night Eating, and this show will help answer some of those questions of how they can take charge of their life. Let's start with, why is night eating such a big issue for people?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, I agree with you, JJ. A lot of people, even people who don't necessarily struggle with weight, struggle with night eating. And I have a little saying. I say, if we all went to bed at 5 o'clock, none of us would have weight issues. As I think a lot of people struggle with, most who struggle with weight, a lot of them, and as you know, because you work with people with their weight as well, a lot of people struggle the most at night. And why is this? Well, for most of us, and research backs this up, the amount of willpower that we have, if you look at how the mind works, and we each do have a certain amount of willpower. Willpower isn't a made-up term, but we do have a certain amount of assertion and ability to will to power, but that really is very limited. As you think about it, we wake up and our day gets going, and a lot of us can pull ourselves together and get our day going and feel really good, especially if we're dieting or trying to be mindful about our eating. Usually for people, breakfast, lunch, not that big of an issue. And that's because in the beginning of our day, we have a certain amount of willpower. We're able to focus. We're able to make those better choices. But as the day pulls at us, as we get stressed, as we get stimulated from external sources like going to work and having to do certain tasks at work, families pull at us if we're moms or if we're in relationships, the other people in our household need us to do things. And so if you think about the brain just being an entity and how much from the moment we wake up, we're really stimulated. Our brain is really overwhelmed almost by the time that we get to the afternoon. So by the time we get to the afternoon, we've really sapped a lot of our willpower or our ability to focus. So that's one thing. The other thing is that there is a certain amount of structure built into the beginning part of our day. Most people's day falls into a particular pattern of activity, right? So we're either going to work or we're doing tasks about the house. So again, by the time we get to the evening, it's time to relax. And in our unconscious mind is very habitualized. Our drive to do most of the things that we do in our life are contained in our unconscious behavioral patterns. So much of our just day-to-day existence, if you think about it, is just pure habit. It's really existing outside of our conscious awareness, and thank goodness for that, or else we probably wouldn't get half of what we do done. I mean, if you think of just being able to get into a car and drive your car, so much of that has become habitualized. You think about how hard it was, when you first started driving, put the key in the ignition and put your foot on the brake and oh my gosh, backing out. That's so overwhelming. But over time, our brain habitualizes everything. So the challenge with night eating is that we get into these habitual patterns. And so we get into the evening pattern of coming home. And then for a lot of us, if we are coming home, many people, and you've probably recognized this in your clients, JJ, especially those that might be struggling with weight or fitness, is that we might be under eating earlier in the day. I see this as a phenomena again and again and again, that we're not actually eating enough earlier in the day, especially protein-rich foods in the afternoon. So we're getting home, and we're getting home at that 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock time, and we're famished, and we're so hungry. We're, if I use the idea of our body is a gas tank. In our gas tank, it's empty and it needs fuel. And so what happens is a lot of us have gotten habitualized into reaching for instant fuel, which would be the really refined carbohydrates. So we might open the cupboard and grab the crackers, or we might open the refrigerator and start snacking, and then we might sit down and eat dinner. But because we've started the engine going and our blood sugar has tanked so low during the afternoon, it does, even though we're eating food now and filling ourselves with, often a lot of calories, our body hasn't really registered all of that fuel that has gone into it, because our blood sugar and our leptin levels are very slow to rise and regulate after we've gotten to that, what I would call zero on a scale of 0 to 10 hunger levels. So one, we have very little willpower when it gets to the night to put the brakes on this habitual pattern that we have fallen into. And even if we're able to come home and eat a normal dinner, a lot of us have just habitualized having a treat after dinner, and often that treat will end up being grabbing a bag of something or numerous somethings, cookies or chips or popcorn or something, and sitting in front of the television. And then because we have very little awareness, that's where the mindless eating really kicks into place. I mean, when I say mindless eating, I'm talking about anything that happens really below our consciousness. We can think, well, gosh, I don't think I've eaten that much, but we could certainly plow through a lot of food sitting in front of a television. It was interesting. There was just recently an article in the American Scientific Journal that talked about how habits are created. And one of the things is that when we first begin a new behavior, like starting to sit down in front of the TV and eat something after dinner, or coming home at night and being really hungry and beginning that eating pattern of eating the crackers and the cheese, or even drinking a glass of wine, which then turns on our hunger even more, and now we're drinking more wine and eating more food. It said that when we're first going through these behavioral patterns, our mind's pretty aware, but very quickly our conscious awareness goes from very, very high to very low. They did this with testing with a rat running through a maze, and they put electrodes to the rat's head and ran it through the maze. And the beginning of the course was a sound, like a really loud sound that cued to the rat, okay, time to go through the maze. And then the rat would find its way through the maze and get to the end and get some sugar water as a reward. So the first couple of times, the rat's brain registers very high levels of activity, because the brain was figuring out what to do, but it knew there was a reward at the end and it wanted to get to the reward, so it did. And then after that, something really interesting happened. Is the brain activity began to subside as the rat continued going through the course. It got better and better, and the brain didn't have to work so hard to get from the beginning, from the cue, which was the sound, to the end, which was the sugar water. So what they realized, that about 4, 5, 6 times into it, there was little to no brain activity from the cue to the reward. So if you think about, like, even opening a box of crackers or a bag of chips, or digging into some cookies, often we're a little bit conscious, we're conscious about the cue. Oh, there are the cookies. There's a bag of chips. Let me grab them and watch TV and relax. But then often what they found was that we go really unconscious until we get to the end, which is like the end of the bag or the end of the chips or the end of the cookies. So I find that that's often what's happening with night eating behaviors, is that we just go from one cue to reward. And what they recognized with the rat was, which I meant to say, was they could even swap the reward out now for something that wasn't enjoyable. Like they would swap out the sugar water for something that was like dirty water. And it didn't matter. The rat still went as quickly to the dirty water. So that kind of shows that once the habit is in place, we could even, get to the end of the night and go, oh, I feel gross, I feel horrible, I never want that to happen again. But the habit has now manifested itself in the unconscious mind, and so now we're more the victim of this repetition pattern going on over and over again. And the big challenge with the evening is our willpower is so low that us exerting conscious effort becomes a lot harder at the night. And often for us, the night is so unstructured that so much more unstructured than earlier in the day, that it's kind of just seen as a general reward time in the unconscious mind. And that usually is why, one, people struggle from it and why it's hard to stop that pattern.
You had mentioned a couple times the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind, and I know all about hypnotherapy. I've been doing it for years, and I love it, and I think what you're doing is great, and I think many people would benefit from doing hypnotherapy. But for the people that are listening that have never heard of hypnosis or hypnotherapy, I think they'd benefit from a short little synopsis, if you will, about how it works and
Sure.
the difference between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind.
Thank you for asking. I would love to talk about hypnosis quickly. So we have a conscious mind and we have an unconscious mind or subconscious mind. The conscious mind is our critical, analytical human brain, the mammal brain, the part of the brain that reasons and analyzes things and thinks things through and is brilliant. And then our unconscious mind, which is also a brilliant part of us. That's the part that runs our automatic behaviors like our breathing and our heart beating and all our automatic bodily functions, but also that's where our memory is stored. Everything that's ever happened to us in our lives is stored in our unconscious mind. All of our habits, our automatic behaviors that like I've been talking about, and all of our beliefs like, when people struggle with habits or belief systems like I'm fat and I'm always going to be that way, or it's hard, or I hate exercise, JJ, I'm sure you might hear that quite a bit. These things are all stored in our unconscious minds. When we're from birth until we're in our 20s, everything that happens to us, our parents, teachers, life experiences, all that we get imprinted with their beliefs, their routines, their thought processes. So all those lessons that we're learning in those early years are very deeply imprinted on us. And a lot of that stuff is really good. Hey, look both ways before you cross the street. That becomes deeply habitualized into us. Don't touch fire. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. These are all really good things that help us function in the real world and to go and have friends and get a job and exist and be functional, right? But the problem is that when it gets to certain habits that are maybe holding us back, like procrastination or getting to a certain point in life and then not being able to move past that, whether it's your income level or your love relationships or your health and fitness levels, or if we're somebody who struggles, like we smoke and that's a habit, or that we overeat sugar and that's a habit. So all of these things are now imprinted on our unconscious mind. And our unconscious mind, just like, for instance, with a smoker, consciously, everybody knows smoking is bad for you. But the unconscious mind of a smoker is just wired to expect cigarettes at certain times in certain places over the course of the day. So what happens in the state of hypnosis is the unconscious mind becomes more open to ideas of change. One of the main things that happens in the state of hypnosis is this thing called the critical faculty is relaxed. What is the critical faculty? Well, when we get into our 20s, this really amazing sort of phenomena occurs is that we start really sealing in all those things that we have been imprinted with throughout our life. And so I'm sure you've heard the term, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that just means that as we get older, more and more of what our mind knows to have worked for us tends to just, the mind wants to protect that and say, hey, well, that's working for us, so let's not let anybody change that or let any new information come in. And so this critical filter really is filtering out anything that doesn't agree with what we already know to be true about ourselves, about the people in our lives and the world around us. That's why people don't change religions every week or don't change spouses every week, is that, we have our moral code, we have our cultural code, is all sort of hardwired in there within us. And hey, that for the most part works for us. But on those things that are really painful for us, that's why it becomes hard to change. Hypnosis is a very valuable tool because it allows us to relax that critical filter and go in and speak to the unconscious mind and break up the mechanisms of our attachment to that habit, to the number of cigarettes that we're smoking over the course of the day, to ideas about ourselves or making healthy habits. So like when I work with somebody with night eating, we're relaxing the mind and really changing. We're really focusing them on the behaviors that they want to do at night versus what they don't want to do. Because a lot of times when we're trying to make a behavioral change, we're focusing on, oh, well, I don't want to night eat, or I don't want to come home and drink 2 glasses of wine. But the problem is when we focus on something that we don't want to do, the mind doesn't really process negatives really well, so we perpetuate that behavior.
Well, that's also the definition of law of attraction. You get what you think about whether you want it or not. So don't does not exist. You cannot say I don't want something, or you can't say don't think of the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Right? It doesn't work like that.
No.
What you resist persists. Definitely. Obviously, the subconscious mind and having the critical mind sort of in full fear of change, is that why it's so hard to change the routine at night? Like, what makes eating in front of the TV especially hard to change?
Like I said, there's a number of reasons. One, once our rat brain, like let's just say we have the rat brain that has been trained to sit in front of the TV, what happens is it's very fascinating that a habit pulls on us, meaning we have built in hard drive an expectation. I'm sure you've heard the term Pavlov's dog, that idea that the Russian scientist Pavlov took his dog, and every night when he fed his dog, he rang a bell. And so over time, the dog got used to hearing this bell, and when Pavlov took the food away and rang the bell, the dog would salivate anyway as if he was going to get that food. So what happens is we might be sitting in front of the TV and saying, I'm not going to eat cookies tonight. I'm going to keep them in the kitchen. So I'm sitting watching the TV though, and there's this part of my brain going, where are the cookies? Where are the cookies? So it's kind of like an annoying ringing phone that it's just sitting there going, where are the cookies? We expect the cookies. Why are we not getting the cookies? And that creates a feeling of agitation. And that agitation sometimes will feel like hunger, even though we've eaten, a half hour earlier. So obviously it isn't real true physical hunger, but there's a feeling of something's missing, that is a void. A lot of people will talk about this when they're trying to change a behavior. They'll say, well, something's missing. I feel like I'm missing out on something. And it's really just the nature of the brain going, well, where is that thing that works for us? That cookies in front of the TV, we want that, we want that, we want that. So what happens is in order to create the behavioral change, we really need to change the focus. And one of the things that happens when we get up, and so that feeling of agitation might get so profound that we're like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to go in the kitchen and get the cookies. So we go and we grab the cookies. As soon as we grab the cookies, that agitation feeling goes away. And so then we bite into the cookie and we feel the relief, and our brain goes, oh, see, cookies make me feel good. Well, no, cookies don't necessarily make us feel good, but they relieve the agitation of the expectation that there's supposed to be a cookie happening when we watch TV. That reinforces our belief that, oh, I need cookies. Cookies are a part of my evening. They relax me. Well, cookies don't relax you. They just relieve the agitation that they create. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely. And what I was thinking is TV is also very hypnotic.
Yes.
People watching television, you're going to get suggestive, hypnosis from commercials. I mean, I think I watched Cupcake Wars one show, and I was like, okay, I want a cupcake. And I went to the kitchen. Now, I have different skill sets and obviously done hypnosis, but for myself. But I went to the kitchen and made a gluten-free cupcake. So at least I was doing something at least a little bit better. But I did, and I only had one versus like 12 of them. But I definitely would notice the suggestive nature of television and of radio, and which is another reason why I don't watch the news, because of all sort of the negative stuff that just gets obviously imprinted on you, and the effect of the negativity and that low vibration energy that comes out of all that negative news. So the TV itself is also just hypnotic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why when we're in our car, there's something called highway hypnosis, which happens when we are driving our car, because it is such an automatic function. Our brain is sort of in a trance-like state often when we are driving. And that's why radio ads are so powerful. They're very highly suggestive, and that's why marketers pay big bucks to get in front of your ears, in the car, on the television. Again, like you said, JJ, at night in front of the TV, we're relaxed. Our unconscious mind is more open, and TV does put us in a trance-like state. So absolutely, we see other people eating, we see those food shows, and no wonder the Food Network is so popular. Yeah, we get in there and those suggestions are given, and we absolutely associate from our very, very little, from being a baby and toddler, food is love, food is comfort. And so those very early signals, then we come home and we've had a bad day at work, and that little kid in us just wants to be comforted and consoled. And guess what? Food is kind of one of the easier things to do to console ourselves, if that's something that we've habituated to.
So we're going to talk about what I want you to share with people who are listening. What are some specific ways that they can change the mindless snacking and overeating at night? I know that everyone now is waiting to hear what they can do to make that shift in what they're doing. But before we get to that, I need to take a moment first to thank our sponsors. Get the hottest tips and latest trends for your business success with today's Innovative Woman magazine, a free print and online digital magazine. Plus, receive the special bonus video series, Platforms for Profit, the must-have marketing essentials for outrageous success, taught by media and marketing strategist Kathy Alessandra. Who is today's innovative woman? She's a smart and savvy business owner. She is driven and committed to success. She invests in herself and her business on everything from products to grow her knowledge, services to grow her business, and events to learn and connect with potential clients and customers. You can claim your free subscription today and get it mailed to your home or office at today'sinnovativewoman.com. Want even more up-to-date recipes, product reviews, exercises, and mental stimulation? You can find step-by-step articles from top-notch experts on invisiblefitness.com/blog. If you're busy like me, you may want the convenience of having these articles mailed directly to your inbox every month. So be sure to register your name and email at the top of the page so we can make sure you don't miss anything. Again, that's invisiblefitness.com/blog, invisiblefitness.com/blog. Okay. Rita, what are some specific ways we can make changes to our mindless snacking and overeating at night?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to share those with you. So I think there's some very easy, doable things that you can start doing right away to make a change in your evening patterns. And one of the things that you can do actually starts way before the evening. This is something that I would call a self-hypnosis technique, and it's a super simple self-hypnosis technique. And one of the things that I think people get really wigged out about hypnosis is they think that it's something that can be done to you. But often we can put ourselves in a nice, relaxing, self-hypnotic trance. Like you were saying, JJ, you practice self-hypnosis. And when you think about it, most of the nature of what, when we're psyching ourselves up to do something, to take an exam or to do something that maybe is out of our comfort zone, and we're trying to relax and focus on that, seeing ourselves do it, that is really, we're putting ourselves into a bit of a hypnotic state. One of the two things that I think of for hypnosis or required for hypnosis is intention and focus. So if we are laying in bed in the morning, this is one of the best times to self-hypnotize yourself, because your mind is already in a kind of groggy, half-trance state. You've just woken up. Your mind is really pretty open at this time. The day hasn't started. Your defensive mechanisms haven't been put into play. So this is an awesome time to give yourself self-suggestions. So one of the things that I recommend to think about for night eating is to really focus on your day and how you're going to take care of yourself, and really visualize your day up until the time you go to bed tonight as far as self-care is concerned. And what do I mean by that? Much research has been put behind this idea of practicing before you play. Even with athletes, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard the story about the athletes who maybe were injured or were not being able to physically practice their sport, but they just practiced their sports internally in their mind. And they did research and found that these athletes perform just as well as the athletes who had physically been, for instance, with basketball players practicing hoop shots. So one of the things that when we are making a behavioral change, what has happened is in your unconscious mind, these neural loops have been created to manifest your night eating. So you're just playing out that same neural roadmap over and over and over again. It's become very easy for your mind to play it out, even though consciously you're like, why am I night eating? I ate this. The unconscious mind is very invested in just, let's keep things status quo. It's easy. It's what we know, because we don't like change. In order to create change, one of the best things to do is to practice ahead of time and visualize your night as you would like it to occur. So we aren't not night eating, but we are creating what I would call competing behaviors, meaning I see myself coming home and I see myself walking from my car through my house, and I might go into the kitchen, but I see myself pouring myself a nice glass of water or iced tea, and maybe even earlier in the day, because often for most people, I do recommend that you eat a nice snack in the afternoon, like a protein snack. It doesn't need to be a huge snack, but it could be 100 calories worth of something that's going to stabilize your blood sugar so that when you go home, you aren't in that ready to saw off your arm and eat it sort of hunger state. You're stabilized. You're okay. So maybe you can just come home and visualize yourself getting a nice refreshing drink that's non-alcoholic and taking it into a nice relaxing place like your living room and just sitting there and giving yourself 10 minutes to relax. Or that's just my suggestion, but whatever the suggestion is, what you're doing is saying, what do I really want to create with my evening? Because so much of what our evening ends up being is sort of just fallback behavior. Rarely do we ask ourselves, well, if I could have my night any way I wanted it, what would that look like? What would truly fulfill me? Maybe it would be to go out for a walk and really be in your body and enjoy your body. Or maybe it's fixing a nice, healthy dinner. But whatever it is, visualize it from your bed in the morning. See yourself following through on it. Visualize yourself sitting in front of the TV. And maybe if you are going to have a snack after dinner, which is cool, but that you see yourself going back into the kitchen, getting that snack and not eating it in front of the TV, but really sitting down at a table and enjoying the treat, whatever that might be. There was a cognitive behavioral research study done in Oxford, England, and they found that people who allow themselves a treat at the end of the day are more apt to probably forego mindless snacking earlier in the day, or those treats in the office, like the bagel run or the donuts that everybody's offering around, if they know that they're going to have their special healthy treat at night. It's just something that is, again, what we would call a competing behavior. Well, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to do that. You see it, you know that you're going to have it, you're going to give yourself that moment of enjoyment, and that maybe you see yourself watching the TV food-free. One of the things that I do highly recommend to clients is that they focus, instead of not eating, that they focus on fasting after dinner. Fasting is actually a focus rather than avoidance. Again, it's hard for us not to do something. So if you can think of yourself as somebody who fasts from dinner until breakfast the next morning, what you're doing is creating a different idea of yourself as somebody who's healthy and who allows their digestive tract to relax and renew itself between dinner. And that gives you something very positive, very proactive, very healthy to focus on, rather than trying not to night eat because, and I can't eat in front of the TV is really hard. So we're really putting ourselves in, we're seeing ourselves differently. We're putting something more powerful and positive in front of us because the mind likes to focus forward rather than trying not to night eat. So one, which would be start in the beginning of the day and create your roadmap for healthy night eating, or, healthy eating in the evening and going to bed feeling light, feeling like you really took care of yourself. Make sure you get that afternoon snack, something that's going to stabilize your blood sugar levels so that when you get home, you aren't at zero, what I call zero, or zero fuel in the gas tank. You actually are somewhat stabilized. And then follow through on your healthy dinner and consider fasting from the evening, or consider saying, visualizing earlier in the day, okay, I'm going to have my healthy dinner, and then I'm going to wait a couple of hours, and then I'm going to have my treat that I set aside for myself, and then I am going to go to bed feeling good about myself.
Excellent. Sounds great. And I think that, everyone who has practiced hypnosis or has done some of this work will be reminded of these tools. I mean, you just reminded me. I'm doing some of these things anyway, not in terms of eating, but they are very effective. So thank you, Rita, very much for that. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Well, there are a couple of ways. Thank you, JJ. I love to help people with habits such as smoking, weight management. Those are my two loves and fortes, but I also help people get past other things that are stopping them in their life. I work with actors, and I do work with business people too with procrastination or performances and nerves. You can reach me at 323-988-4574. That's my direct office line. Or you can reach me for weight management and other needs at www.shiftweightmastery.com. That's www.shiftweightmastery.com. And if you go to that website, you can always sign up for a free intro to hypnosis class. I do them often. I'm starting to do them once a month. So if you are interested in learning more about hypnosis for weight loss, you can certainly do that. And then my smoking cessation website is www.maketheshiftnow.com. That's www.maketheshiftnow.com. And that is a one session, stop smoking, guaranteed sessions. Please feel free to call me or email me with any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Rita, so much for being on the show today. We're going to have Rita back to talk about changing bad habits or turning bad habits into good habits. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel so that you can see when the show is published and ready to be heard. Thank you again, Rita, so much.
Thank you, JJ. It's been my pleasure.
And stay tuned, everyone, for more great content.
Looking for an engaging and inspiring speaker? Does your group need a good jolt of positive thinking? Look no further than JJ Flizanes. Visit her site to check out her most requested topics and video examples. jjflizanes.com. That's jjflizanes.com.
Is your website working for you? If it's not, Every Angle Media can help transform your existing business presence and build you a website that works when you're not working. Visit us online at everyanglemedia.com. The Fit to Love podcast show offers you 6 days a week of helpful content to achieve the happy life you deserve. Movement Mondays and Tasty Tuesdays are weekly videocasts, while Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays are audio-only shows themed every week to address your holistic life and needs. If the show inspired you, we would love for you to share it and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to fittolove.tv for recaps of every show, resources, and to join the community. That's FIT, the number 2, LOVE.tv. Have a fit and fabulous day.